Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is the NFL edition of Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over all the games in Week 16, starting with the Thursday night game, ending with Monday Night Football. Happy holidays to all of you out there, and hopefully it's a great week in the NFL for you. If you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Comment down below with what your football picks are for this week. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games in Week 16. First up, it's your Thursday night football game between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Jets. This one's going to be 8:15 Eastern on Prime Video. We see the Jets right now as a 1-point favorite at some books. Other books, I'm seeing it as a pick'em, and the total is set at 36 points. The New York Jets offense really struggled last week against the Detroit Lions. Had a little bit of success down the stretch, but overall only 17 points against one of the weaker defenses in the NFL. And now you're playing in a pretty cold environment in New York for this primetime game. You look at the weather, it's going to be 47 degrees. It's also going to be raining, though. That's the big problem for this one. It's going to be pretty windy as well. So we've seen the total open up at 42 points, but it's dropped down 6 points down to 36. And I like the under still at 36 with the Jets' offensive struggles and the Jaguars' defense actually improving quite a bit over the last few weeks. We saw a tough matchup last week for the Jaguars defensively against a very good Cowboys team, but the Jaguars held the Cowboys running backs to 3.8 yards per carry, and they're able to get some more pressure as of late. The Jaguars have been able to against opposing quarterbacks. They've had 7 sacks in the last 2 games against the Titans and Cowboys, so I like what I'm seeing from the Jaguars defensively. We know the Jets defense has been pretty good all season long. Jets offense has not been great, and the weather is not great for an over, so give me the under in this Jaguars-Jets game. Next up, it's the New York Giants taking on the Minnesota Vikings. This is going to be the first of 11 games on Christmas Eve. The Vikings are 4-point favorites. Total is at 48. Now, the New York Giants found a way yet again to earn a huge win to really save their season. It was a huge game against the Commanders for playoff implications. Now, the Giants 8-5-1 on the season, have a much better chance of making the postseason because of that victory. But this would be an even bigger win if they can grab it on the road against a very good Vikings team. But the Vikings defense continues to struggle. We saw it last week against the Indianapolis Colts where they gave up 36 points. Now, some of that was because of defensive scores on the other side, but still, this Vikings defense has not been great as of late. We've mentioned it plenty of times, and even last week they gave up over 340 yards to the Colts. Not a very good Colts offense. Before that, they gave up 464 to the Detroit Lions, 486 to the New York Jets of all teams. Over 400 in 5 of their last 6 games. Not where you want to be, and it's just not a team I would want to lay points with right now, even though the Vikings offense has been great, and we know they're coming off that big comeback victory, the biggest comeback in NFL history. They were down 33 points. They found a way to win, but still don't want to lay points. They didn't cover the number in that game against the Colts. I don't think they're going to cover the number in this game either, so give me the points here over a field goal with the New York Giants. Next up, it's the New Orleans Saints taking on the Cleveland Browns. We're going to see the Browns as 2.5-point favorites. Total is at 32 points, the lowest total in the NFL for 14 years. 2008 was the last time we saw a total this low in the National Football League, and I like the under in this game even still. I still think there's value on the under. This Saints offense is not good, even though last week they put up 21 points. I think that was the high end of what this offense can do. Last week, they still only had 3.9 yards per carry on the ground. They have not had more than 4.5 yards per carry since their game against the Cincinnati Bengals towards the beginning of the season. And the Cleveland Browns defensively, they've been strong lately. We saw last week against the Ravens holding Baltimore to 3 points. And even though Lamar Jackson did not play in that game, we know the Browns defense has been pretty good this season, even despite some big injury throughout the year. So the Saints offense is not in good form on the road here where the Saints have really struggled. And you got a good Browns defense. The Browns offense has kind of been hit or miss lately. I don't really like what I'm seeing from Deshaun Watson at quarterback. And because of that, I'm going to take the under in this Saints-Browns game. Next up, it's the Detroit Lions taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Lions are 3-point favorites. Total is at 44. Not my favorite game on the board right now, but I'm looking towards the Lions over in their team total this week. I also like the full game over. When you look at the Detroit Lions, they've been able to score points against almost any team that they've faced this season, even some of the tougher defenses in the league. And last week, it was a very tough spot for their offense to go on the road against a very good Jets defense. But the Lions were still able to score 20 points in that game, which was enough to win the game outright. And they found 360 total yards of offense. The offensive line, I think the Lions' offensive line is the best in the NFL right now. It's been great for, just allowing Jared Goff to have time in the pocket, and the passing game has really had a lot of success because of it, and even the run game at times. We've seen DeAndre Swift battle injuries all season, but the run game has been good for Detroit, pretty consistent, averaging over 100 yards per game on the ground, 4.4 yards per carry. But the passing game is the thing I think is the biggest jump from last year's team. We saw last season Jared Goff didn't have a great year, and the offensive line struggled a bit at times, but this season they're only taking sacks on 3.9% of their passing plays. The defense has not been great for Detroit, so that's why I lean towards the full game over as well. So give me the Detroit Lions team total and full game over in this one. Next up, it's the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the New England Patriots. Bengals are 3.5-point favorites. Total is at 41.5. I'm still not looking to back the Cincinnati Bengals when they're playing on the road. I know last week we took the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus the 3.5, 4 points in that game, and it was looking great. It was 17-0 Tampa Bay. The Bengals were in trouble, but turnovers in the second half by Tampa Bay, Tom Brady included, really hurt Tampa in that ball game, and the Bengals found a way to win and earn the cover. But in this spot against a very, I would say, conservative offense from New England, doesn't really turn the ball over too much, takes care of the football, but also plays very good defensively. I just don't think the Bengals are going to get those opportunities that they did last week. And you look at the points per game, both for and allowed on offense and defense, total yards per game, for and allowed. They're just far worse away from home than you compare them at home. I mean, look at the yards for, 433 per game the Bengals are averaging at home this season, but only 309 away from home. Last week, only 237 total yards by the offense. They're scoring 29 points per game at home, 24 on the road, allowing 4 more points away from home than they are at home this season. So, I do think that the Bengals on the road on a red-hot win streak, I think it's a good time to fade them. The value here lies with New England. So give me the points here with the Patriots. Next up, it's the Buffalo Bills taking on the Chicago Bears. The Bills are 9-point favorites. Total is at 40. I'm going to lay the points here with the Buffalo Bills, even though last week we took the Eagles in a pretty similar spot and laid the points. The Eagles were not able to cover the number in that game, but it wasn't because they didn't have their chances. I mean, you look at the final total yardage. The Eagles had 429 total yards compared to 248 for the Chicago Bears. It was more so the Bears won the turnover battle. They were +2 in that game, still lost the game by 5 points. They're on a 7-game losing streak. The Chicago Bears are just not playing good football on either side of the ball, especially offensively, where the last 4 weeks they've earned under 300 total yards in 3 of those 4 weeks. The offensive line has really struggled, last week giving up 6 sacks, so there's just no way I can back the Bears in this game. For me, it's the Buffalo Bills laying the points or just passing the game altogether. Next up, it's the Houston Texans taking on the Tennessee Titans. We're going to see the Titans laying 4.5, 5 points in this one. Total is at 37. Lately, the Houston Texans have had a pulse. They've covered in their last 2 games. Big numbers they were getting against the Cowboys and the Chiefs. They forced overtime against Kansas City, and they were winning the game outright against the Cowboys in the final moments, but Dallas found the last-minute touchdown. But, overall, the Texans have been pretty good against the number lately, but I got to look at the numbers here, and it just still doesn't look like the Texans are doing much. I mean, last week they still got outgained 502 to 219. Somehow it was only a 6-point loss in overtime, and it took a turnover to get there for Kansas City. But the Texans are still not playing very good football. They've benefited from being positive in the turnover battle last few weeks, and Titans have really hurt themselves with turnovers the last few weeks themselves. But I do think the Titans' defense is still the best unit in this game compared between these two teams. And you look at the game these two teams had a couple weeks ago, or I would say more than a couple weeks ago, back when Malik Willis got his first start with the Titans against Houston. Even though it was his first start and he didn't really play too well, the Titans still outgained Houston 354 to 161 and won that game by 7 points in the end, covering the number. The Titans look real good against Houston, and now they're a little bit healthier this time around, while the Texans are a little bit unhealthier. Some more injuries for Houston overall, some players sitting out for the rest of the season. So, with all that being said, I think there's some value now because of the Texans covering those numbers. They may be a little bit of a public dog in this spot. So give me the Tennessee Titans laying the points. I haven't taken the Titans too often this season, but this is one of the spots. Next up, it's the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Seattle Seahawks. This is going to be the Chiefs laying 10 points. Total is at 48.5. This is a home game for the Chiefs. They're first in a little while. They played 3 straight road games, and 4 of their last 5 being on the road. But at Arrowhead in this spot, I don't usually lay this many points with the Kansas City Chiefs. They just haven't been very good against the number, and it's no surprise. I mean, it's a very flashy team with the best quarterback in the league in Patrick Mahomes. You're going to get numbers that are a little bit inflated and overvalued because of just how popular the Chiefs are. But in this spot, we see a Seattle team that's just not playing good football at all on either side of the ball. And I think that they I think they were a little bit overrated at the beginning of the season, similar to the New York Giants. And now they've lost 4 of their last 5 games. Last week, it was an ugly performance against the San Francisco 49ers. And I can't back the Seahawks even on the road in this spot. So give me the Kansas City Chiefs laying the points in this game. Next up, it's the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens laying 7 points at home. Total is at 37.5. I'm going to take the Ravens here and lay the points. You know, not my favorite game on the board right now, but I do think the Ravens defense is just too much for a struggling Falcons offense to overcome. And even the Falcons defense has not been great this season overall, and not especially in the last few weeks where they've had pretty feasible matchups against some weaker offenses, the Saints and the Steelers, the Bears, the Commanders, but they're still giving up a good amount of points and a good amount of yards, and that's where I worry the most. The Ravens should be getting healthier on offense in this game, and I think they're going to have a strong performance at home. So give me the Baltimore Ravens laying the points. Next up, it's the Washington Commanders taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are laying 7 points, and this one total is at 38. I know it seems kind of too easy in a game like this, but when I see two defenses that I would say are top 5, top 10 at least in the league going up against each other, I would lean towards the under automatically. And I know the total is set pretty low already at 38, so not a ton of wiggle room, but still, I mean, this Commanders offense, even when they're moving the ball, like we've seen the last few weeks, they're struggling inside the red zone. I mean, last week they had 387 total yards, not too shabby, but they only put up 12 points in that game. Turnovers play a role in that, penalties on offense, and the offensive line struggling as of late as well. You know, I do think that the 49ers have the best defense in the NFL. They've held plenty of teams under 300 total yards this season. I think that's going to be the case in this game as well. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, pretty conservative game for both teams offensively. I'm going to take the under in this Commanders-49ers game. Next up, we see the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are 4.5-point favorites. Total is at 47. Now, unlike the last game where it said it was going to be pretty low scoring, I actually like the over in this game. Even with Gardner Minshew at quarterback as Jalen Hurts is injured, this total was open up around 50.5. It dropped a few points because of the injury news to Jalen Hurts, but I still like the over, and I think we're actually getting a ton of value now because of that line moving, and I think Gardner Minshew is going to be just fine in this offense. We've seen him as a starting quarterback have some success. Even as a backup, he had success last season alone with the Eagles, and you look at the Cowboys defensively, the last few weeks, they have not been very good. I mean, last week, they gave up 503 total yards to the Jacksonville Jaguars, 7.1 yards per carry on the ground, 192 rushing yards, and 311 passing yards. The defense especially is not getting a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks lately, which is a big worry because that was the big part of this Cowboys defense was their ability to get after the quarterback with guys like Micah Parsons. But lately they've only had 2 sacks in the last 2 weeks combined, and that's against the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars of all teams. Now you got the Philadelphia Eagles offense that's running the ball very well. Now, I would say when you look at that matchup that these two teams had back on Sunday Night Football a few weeks ago, it was a game where the Cowboys did nothing offensively in the first half. Cooper Rush was at quarterback in that one. But in the second half, we saw Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard start to have a lot of success on the ground. We even saw Cooper Rush air it out a little bit. Now with Dak Prescott in this game and a healthy Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, I think the Cowboys are going to have a lot of success on offense themselves. I think they're favorites for good reason, but I think the value with the Cowboys is kind of gone because of where the line has gone. 3-point jump from 1.5 to 4.5. I think the over is a better bet for me because of the value we're getting. So give me the over in this Eagles-Cowboys game. Next up, it's the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are 2.5-point favorites. Total is at 39.5. I'm a little bit worried about that Raiders defense. Last week, it was not a good performance, even though the Raiders found the win in the end, an emotional victory and the pick six or scoop and score, whatever you want to call it, to end the game for Chandler Jones. But the defense overall gave up 6.4 yards per carry on the ground, 208 rushing yards, and they also had no sacks against the Patriots, a Patriots offensive line that has not been very good this season. So that is very concerning. The Pittsburgh Steelers offensively kind of been all over the place. They've had plenty of injuries at both the quarterback position and wide receiver position, and you name it. I mean, both on offense and defense, the Pittsburgh Steelers have had a lot of injuries. But offensively, the Steelers have still been able to get over 300 yards pretty consistently as of late. They put up 24 points last week against the Panthers. Pretty good defense for Carolina on the road. I think the Steelers are going to be able to move the ball in this game, and the defense has played pretty well lately themselves. So give me the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they're the favorites for a reason. Give me the Steelers laying the points. Next up, it's the Dolphins and the Packers. This is going to be the first of 3 Christmas Day games. This one's going to be 1 o'clock Eastern on Fox. The Dolphins are laying 4 points. Total is at 49. The Dolphins' offense has kind of been inconsistent lately, but I will say their strength of schedule is really tough lately. They played their last 3 games all on the road against the San Francisco 49ers. We know a very good defense there. The Chargers and then the Bills. And last week, against Buffalo, in pretty bad weather for offense at least, the Dolphins were able to still find 29 points of offense, 405 total yards, 7.5 yards per carry on the ground, 188 rushing yards. So Miami was able to move the ball. They found some success offensively. And in this matchup against the Packers defense that's been hit or miss this season themselves, we saw last week only giving up 156 yards to the Rams. A couple weeks before that, 500 yards allowed to the Eagles in a 40-33 final score. I think we honestly see a game a little bit similar to that Eagles-Packers game. Maybe not as high scoring, but this total is set very, very high, and I think for good reason. I think the Dolphins are going to be able to move the ball at will in this spot, put up 30-plus points, and if Green Bay can just chip in a few touchdowns themselves, I think we're going to get to the over in this one. So give me the over in Green Bay, Miami. I see a final score somewhere in the 34-20 range, so give me the over. Next up, it's the most wonderful time of the year. It's time to gather around the Christmas tree with your friends and family and put on the Broncos-Rams game, 4:30 Eastern on CBS. The Broncos are laying 2 points. Total is at 36.5. And boy, we have missed watching Broncos games in primetime television. Here we go on Christmas Day. But all kidding aside, I'm leaning towards the Broncos in this game. Definitely not a game I'll be watching, even though it is the only game on around this time. But the Broncos looked pretty good against the Cardinals last week, a 9-point win in the end, and overall the Rams just seem to kind of look like they've given up. Honestly, that game against the Packers was just tough to watch if you're a Rams backer or fan, and only 156 total yards of offense. They've taken so many sacks lately. Baker Mayfield does not seem to be the answer, even though he looked good the first week he played for the Rams. But overall, I'm leaning towards Denver because they have the better defense and they look to be in better form as of late. But certainly not a game I'm rushing to bet. Next up, the final game for Christmas Day. It's going to be the Arizona Cardinals and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Cardinals are 6.5-point home underdogs, and the total is at 41. As much as I do know that this is a must-win game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I do think they are going to win this game in the end, it's just really tough to lay this many points with Tom Brady and the Bucs right now. And you look at their current form, they're still not able to run the football, and now Tom Brady having a lot of issues with turnovers, missing some throws as well, and the defense has been able to hold up, but when you're giving the opposing team really good field position on a lot of drives, like we saw last week against Cincinnati, it's just tough to lay this big of a number, especially on the road. So for me, I'm just leaning towards the under in this game. I think the Cardinals offense continues to struggle. I think the Bucs defense steps up, and I think Tampa Bay finds enough points to win this game, maybe cover the number in the end, but I think the under is the best play. And the final game for Week 16, it's the Monday Night Football game on ESPN between the Indianapolis Colts and the Los Angeles Chargers. Colts are 4-point underdogs. Total is at 46.5. Now, the Colts have just made the move. They're going to go with their third quarterback of the year, and Nick Foles, as Jeff Saturday just made the decision on Wednesday afternoon. And I do think it's actually a good idea for the Colts offensively. Matt Ryan just has not been the quarterback that the Colts really wished he would be. Same thing goes for the Colts last season with Carson Wentz, but the offense was still able to move the ball, find some points last week. A lot of that was because of the defense setting them up in great positions, but 36 points of offense last week against the Vikings team on the road, not too bad. I know the Vikings defense was struggling, but the Chargers defense has not really been anything to write home about overall this year. As of late, it's been much better, but I do think on the road, when you look at the Chargers defensively, giving up around 370 total yards, 5.9 yards per carry on the ground, and giving up 24 points per game, I think there's some room here for Nick Foles to put on a little bit of a show at home and score some points offensively, but I can't trust this Colts defense at all after last week. I mean, like I said, the largest comeback in NFL history, 33-0 down. The Vikings find 39 points, and they find 518 total yards to win that game in the end in overtime. And the Colts defense, even though it was able to get after the quarterback and find some turnovers. Other than that, it was just giving up tons of yards at will. The Vikings were just moving the ball like it was nothing at the end of that game. And I think against the Chargers offense with Justin Herbert and company, the Colts defense is in trouble in this game. So give me the over in the Colts-Chargers game to end the week. And that's it. Those are the games in the NFL for Week 16. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your football picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck and have a happy holiday.